There we are.
There he is. Hey, mate. How you going?
Fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, good morning. So I think we're going to get straight into it here, if that's right with you. The first thing I wanted to ask you, mate, was how did you start with Novak? How did you get your start with Novak? And how did that come up?
It was through Gordon Euling, actually. Gordon runs some clubs up in New Jersey, and I was out at Indian Wells, and I had a meeting with PlaySight, and Gordon's part of PlaySight and Novak's part of PlaySight. So I'm meeting with them, and the idea of, do we take the analytics that I'm kind of researching and bringing to the sport and combine them into PlaySight? And it was a really good meeting. And the further I was going along, Gordon's like, have you shown any of this new data, this new analysis to Novak? I'm like, no, I haven't. So Gordon put me in touch with Murray and Vida. And I was going to Monte Carlo, a month later. And this was in 2016. So I met with Murray and Vida in Monte Carlo during the tournament, showed him everything I did. And then we stayed in touch through the end of the year. And at the end of the year, we all got together and said, yeah, this is something we want to do. And then we all met in person at the 2017 Australian Open, Novak and Murray and I, and sat down and discuss all the different things that I can bring to the table. And the interesting thing is, the conversation started. I said, Novak, how can I help you the best? What do you want from me? There's a lot of different things I can do. And he said, well, there's three things. And the first is, I'd love to see video of me playing. I'd love to.
So you hadn't seen that much video?
I was sitting there going, what? And he goes, yeah, I'd love to see video of me playing, because he goes, throughout my career, I've hardly seen any video of me playing. I don't know, I think I'm doing the right things out there, but, I'd love for you to look at it and to tag it and to analyze it and tell me, yes, these are the right things, and yes, these aren't. So first of all, it was an analysis of him. It's like, I want to get better. I want to improve, and I think seeing me in video will improve that. And also looking at the analytics of everything from my matches will help me improve. So yes, that was one. The second was, every time I play a match, I would like for you to do a pre-match report. So especially for guys that I've never played before, I'd love to know their tendencies. I'd love to know the right way to play them. I want to know what to expect. I want to know where they serve. I want to know their favorite patterns. I want to know on break points, and how I match up, where this guy makes errors. So, we want to take off the table the losses that are possible when you don't either know a player and you play them wrong, or a player that gets hot and you don't know why they've got hot. Why is this guy, won 7 matches in a row? So he goes, before the match, I'd love that analysis from you to really understand each match that I play. And then thirdly, we're going to pay extra attention to these other guys. Called Roger and Rafa and the other ones. Let's really drill down on these guys and make sure, we know everything about them that we possibly can, because those are the guys that I'm going to have to play in the big finals and the big matches to win these tournaments. So that was kind of the overview on how this all got started. And we started at the beginning of 2017, and we finished at the end of last year, the end of 2019. And for 3 years, I did every single match that he played.
That's so awesome. I just wanted to say, firstly, thank you, I guess, for everything that you've done for data in tennis.
Pleasure.
It's helped me to coach so much more specifically, and understanding primary and secondary patterns of play and developing them with juniors. And I've got a lot of juniors now that I'm maybe not their primary technique coach, but they all come to me for strategy and pattern work. And it's really been able to expand my business. So I really got to say thank you very much for that.
Pleasure. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's being able to share it has been brilliant. I've played at a pretty good level, and it was just interesting what you don't really know. You just don't know that. And so that comes to sort of my second question: is that are you surprised by how little these top guys actually know when it doesn't reflect on the scoreboard?
Yeah,
on the data sheet.
Yeah, you would think, when you're kind of on the outside looking in, I remember as a younger coach, you'd watch these players and sometimes you're like in awe and sometimes you're like, what in the world is that player doing out there? And, a professional tennis player has figured out how to accelerate the head of a racket really, really fast.
Yeah.
They've also figured out how to move around the court really, really fast. And we take it for granted, or we think it's like, well, they've figured out strategy too. Obviously they have. They've, and the answer is no. The answer is absolutely not. Yeah. There's a lot of times players at the elite level of our sport, whether it's top 10 or top 50, are much more strategically minded, like a collegiate player or a junior. They've got that far from other skills, not having the skill set of looking to the other side of the court and figuring out the opponent and making the opponent play bad. A lot of times it's just, I'm going to go out there and do what I want to do, and if it works, great. And some players have made careers out of that. But, from working with the #1 player in the world, from coaching against other guys that are, around that same level, we give them too much credit. They strategically, yep. They're still struggling, just like the rest of us. Yep. Like the rest of us. So, and a lot of times with strategy, it's very simple things that I'm delivering. It's not like, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of data in the research, but in the delivery is like, okay, what do I do against this guy? You're going to return deep middle to his forehand, and you're going to attack him out wide in position A. Okay, where does he serve? He's going to serve out wide in the juice every time he needs a point, and on break points, he's going to go kick wide in the ad. That's it. Good. Go.
I think it's awesome because you've sort of taken away a lot of the opinion out of it. I think there's a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and really when you look at the data, I mean, like you hear a lot of players saying that Nadal is a grinder, and then I think I read it in one of your blogs. He's still a first strike player first, which is it's really interesting because you remember all these long massive rallies, and you're like, this guy's unbelievable, But when you look at that, it's really quite amazing. Okay, so I got a specific question for you, and it's Wimbledon final last year, and it's 8-7. Roger Federer is serving at 40-15.
Yes.
I was on a plane watching this, and I was going for Federer. I had goosebumps. I couldn't believe he was on the verge of winning it. Yeah. So basically, Federer's serve is unreadable. So when you go back and look at Federer missing that first serve into the net, he was going up the tee, but Djokovic was split-stepping to the right to cover wide. Mm-hmm. Was that something that you'd talked about on huge points, that his primary serve would be wide, or is that an in-the-moment feel sort of chess match there?
Yeah, so what happened, so it was 15 all, and then Roger went ace-T and ace-T. So, typically you're going to, that kind of moment is like, you all of a sudden in that moment you're feeling something. It's like, well, the T's worked twice, Novak's not on it, and a lot of times you just keep going to the well until the opponent can prove that that they're on it, or they can stop it. So, that kind of what Roger had recently done, kind of took over that situation. And then with the next match point, he had that low forehand. Yep. And
inside in got past.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, you're going to get, if you go to the forehand, you don't want to approach the forehand, or almost never, unless you can make the guy slice, unless you can make them lob, because everybody's got a good running forehand cross. Yeah. So, but the thing with that, the nuance of that is the angle that it's coming from and the height of that ball was not an easy ball to go back behind. So Roger kind of said, okay, I commit to coming in, but this ball's not giving me what I want, so I'm going to hit it there. And then somebody put up a Federer match point against Murray, where and then put the Murray one and that one. It was an identical point. Identical point. Murray missed it by this far, and Djokovic put it in by this far. But in an ideal world, if he could have that back, he wouldn't have hit the approach to that spot. And
go inside out.
Yeah, if you have to. But the other thing, if you have to hit it there, let's say you have to hit it there, you go and cover cross court immediately. And he may have even done that in his mind and still not got there because that angle was just the natural angle to cover. So,
yeah.
Tom.
I was just really interested in that first fault where Djokovic actually covers the wide after being beaten TT beforehand. And I didn't know if that was something that you'd spoken to him where it's like juice court, big point, watch the slider wide. Is that something that you're thinking about with him more, or is it just feel it out?
Rogers, there is certain moments, and I'd have to go back and look exactly where we talked about, because players will get hot in a tournament. You've got, a certain season. We're going to know where Roger Federer has hit every first serve in the juice court in his career. Yep. We're going to know where he's done it in that season, and we're going to know where he did it in the last in Wimbledon in the last 6 matches, and we're going to cut it up by points as well. So we're absolutely going to have an idea of that, but also Novak certainly has the ability and the understanding that in the moment, what is he feeling from Roger? Because there's always that chess match. Where does he think, where does he think this is going?
Yeah.
And that's ultimately, when you go through that checklist, that's a massive thing. So I don't, off the top of my head, I could look it up, but off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly where I told Novak to look for in that Wimbledon final, but too late now.
It was huge. That was so clutch. Even at the pressure of that moment, that pass on the 40-30 point, it was still huge. It's still huge.
Yeah.
So, so how much time do you think players should be working on their primary patterns and then their secondary patterns if you're out there coaching juniors or anyone?
Well, I like to think of it, there's 2 parts to that. You want to employ the primary pattern about 7 or 8 times out of 10. That's your goal. And the way it works is it's Pavlovian theory. It's Pavlov and his dog. Pavlov rings the bell, feeds the dog. Rings the bell, feeds the dog. The dog's salivating. He knows what's coming. The bell triggers the dog.
Operant conditioning,
You want to trigger the opponent. You want to go primary pattern, primary pattern, primary pattern. Get them set up to receive it, and then ideally in a moment that doesn't cause stress, such as in a point score such as a 40-15, then you go secondary pattern. But you've done a great job initially of conditioning their mind to accept or receive the primary pattern. So that's how that works. Some players go out there and go, it's here, it's there, it's everywhere. And I'm like, well, there's no pattern to randomness. You want to actually create a pattern, then you want to control and dominate the pattern, and only change the pattern on, when it suits you. So that's kind of what you want to do. But, on the practice court, I like to look at it as 3 things. It's like a chain, and you've got a strong link in the chain, you've got a weak link in the chain, and you've got a broken link. And if you look at matches and say, I'm losing matches because of this broken link, there's something, I'm double faulting 13 times a match. I can't hit a backhand cross court. Whatever it is, if there is something that you can easily point to and say, this is the reason I'm losing, that qualifies as your broken link. You shut everything down and you fix it. And you take it out of the broken column, you put it at least into the weak column or the weaker columns.
Yep.
So then I have the rule is, it's basically about an 80-20. You're going to spend developing your strengths, 80% on the strengths and 20% on the weaknesses. Now, again, with juniors, you can look at it and find 3 or 4 areas. Like there's one boy I coach here in Austin, and we work on his forehand. It's all going great. And then we play points for, an hour. And I notice when I go to his forehand, if I hit it hard there, he misses it because he's late. If I go high, he's hitting down on it into the net, and it's not good. And if it's real short, he's not clicking to continental and chipping it. So for the next 2 weeks, I just put him in those 3 situations with feeding. So I fed him the hard ball, I fed him the high ball, and I fed him the short ball. And we took those kind of, the idea we're going to take those weaker links, and actually now they're a strength of his game. So having strong, weak, and broken is a really good way to do it. And then have and then have the idea of like, how do I organize the practice court? Then that all works.
Sure. There's a couple of questions here I was just looking at. So someone just asked, can you ask about controlling the net?
Yeah, I see a bunch of people here. I'm going to scroll up and say hi to them, and it's really nice. I think, you know, this interaction, and you saw, Joel, I'm so excited about this. You saw with divorce, the first time I've done this, and I look at the, you know, two people chatting with people asking questions. Yeah. How does it get any better?
Yeah. I don't know. I think the long form conversation, I think people really appreciate, you know.
Yeah. So I'm up for all these questions that are going in, up in here. So the question was about the net. How do you control the net?
Ask about controlling the net. So I'm assuming that goes hand in hand with approaching, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, the net's an amazing place to be. I think I put a blog post out yesterday or the day before. You know, the average win percentage at the baseline is about 47%. The average at net 65. The average serving and bowling is about 65, men and women. Those are your typical numbers that we're going to go off, your baseline. So 4 ways to get to the net: forehand or backhand, backhand or backhand, forehand or forehand, or backhand or forehand. Come in with a forehand to the backhand. That's yes, by far the #1 way to do it. But I'll still have players rotate around and try those different methods so they can feel, you know, it ain't so good coming in with a forehand or forehand because I'm going to blast it. This thing's coming back at me. And also coming into position C is just as good as position D. So in the back of the court, you've kind of got out wide in the juice and then middle juice. So it's A, B, C, D. There it is, baby, right there. So C is actually, you think, you know, I'm going to the backhand. If it's a righty, C and D are going to be the backhand side. But C is an amazing place to approach to. So I love to see that. It's very nice. So you can come in wide to D, but you give up angle. You can come in big to C. Fantastic. The key about controlling the net is today it's about coming in with power and coming in with spin and coming in with depth. Power, spin, and depth. Bang, hit that ball. Take time away. And then the harder you kind of hit that one with good spin and good control, it's tough on that backhand side to get a lot of spin to get it up and down to pass you.
Really quick, do you want to tell people what the win percentage is if you come in but you don't have to hit a volley? So I think some people are worried they're not good volleyers.
What is it, Joel? Is it 53 or 57? It's something like that.
I think it's 57.
50, I think it's 57.
57, 58, I think. Percent of the time you don't have to hit a volley, yes.
Don't have to hit a volley. Come in, just tuck it under your, tuck it under your belt, tuck it in your armpit, and you know, just have a sip of water on the way back. So you know, you don't have to volley. I mean, and then also you say, well, Craig and Joel, my volleys aren't great. Hit the approach and sprint in like Davydenko. You know, he sticks in my mind as someone who didn't volley great, but he hit it hard. He took your time away. He's this far from the net, and he hits a dink volley. He just stands there and just kind of dinks it.
Net pressure.
You don't need great technique. So that he had great speed, and he took your time away, and he became a great volleyer. Hitting these little dink volleys.
Yeah, I like to use Songa. Songa is my favorite guy to use that. He'll bomb the approach and then has this little soft volley over the center strap. Yeah, and it's just a great combination. Yeah, but it's pretty amazing. You don't hit that many volleys at all when you come in. Yeah, it's a big deal. And the #1 rally length that you approach on is a rally length of 3. So it's a serve in, a return in, and then your approach is in, and then the ball is missed. So, you know, we need to be training players, and you need to be thinking that right after the serve, you're looking to come straight to the net. So especially on a first serve, you're going bang, staying inside the baseline, not retreating too quickly, and then going, how can I get to the net immediately on this one? So that's when you want to get to the net as quick as you can. Hi guys, there's a bunch of people. Just I'm going to say hi. And Novak Djokovic's weakness from Rafaholic. I think there's a mole. I think there's a mole there. It's a Rafa mole. Yeah, the Rafa player needs to go and needs to go and study. I'm not going to give you all the secrets out here right now, but does Novak have? I'll give you this. Does Novak have weaknesses? Absolutely. So the one, you know, everyone's got them. Everyone's got them. But the key is you need to look for the tendencies. You need to look for the patterns that they gravitate to,
And a lot of times you say, well, let me go the other way. Let me do what they don't like. So, yeah, Novak has weaknesses. Go find them.
What is the average number of shots in a point for a under 14 player?
The average rally length?
For under 14, I'm seeing that question from
I mean,
August Schroeder.
Yeah. I mean, your average rally length at the pros when I first started looking at this was in the 3.6 to 4.0 shots as your average. So you take all the long shots, all the short shots, and you just do your average by total points. That's how you do it. So, I mean, it's going to be, I remember a study by Sterling Struther in North Carolina. He did 7 seasons of high school tennis.
He's a great coach, by the way. Sterling's a great guy.
And a great man, man and a great coach, exactly. And he did 7 seasons. It's in my course game plan, and the average rally length for the boys on his high school team that did well was 2.5 shots. Actually, it was 2.0, and the girls were 2.5. So, it's going to be in that 2.5.
Because the serve isn't as good and the return isn't as good, so it's all relative, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, but it's still not 8.
Yeah.
It's still not 8. Don't go and practice 8-shot rallies. You want to win more. You're going to practice the short stuff. Casey Brenner, thank you for what you did for this, for sports attack and the ace attack. The ace attack is the ball machine. Great ball machine. Anytime you can get serving into a lesson with a ball machine, I'm all in. What else have you got there, Joel?
Okay, so I was going to ask you this question. It's a hypothetical.
Yeah.
And I want to know your opinion. Do you think Nadal would be as good if it was sudden death scoring at deuce?
Would Nadal be as good if it was sudden death? Because
you've got to take into account all of the break points that he saves with his wide serve.
Are you talking with him serving or receiving?
I think both, because he's going to have to serve on both sides. But
well, with serving, he would go up a level.
You think he'd go up?
Yeah, he'd go up because it's about 76 or 77% of all break points are in the ad.
Yep.
So you've only got the 15, 40, 40, 15.
Yes.
And Rafa's is he going to slide you wide in the ad, or he's going to surprise you with the tee, he's going to jam you up there, and he's going to hit way more serve +1 forehands out of that. So anytime any point starts in the ad, which is, a study I should actually do, I haven't done that, is, let's do, and actually I write a weekly Infosys story on the ATP website. And that's a good storyline. Is Rafa, how much different is Rafa serving in the juice and serving in the ad and returning in the juice, return the ad? It's a good storyline.
Yeah.
You may see that in the next couple of weeks.
Hopefully. I think it's interesting with college players and how it changes the dynamic when they have, the game ends at deuce. So you have the returner with such a huge advantage if they can get to 30, because all of a sudden the pressure dynamic just hugely changes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. So, with a lot of these things, there's always more than one thing in play. There's always, there's layers, and at certain times of the match and in certain different matches, which layers become more important.
Sure. Let's go. Tennis Builder, what is your favorite drill to practice with juniors? Second serve +1. Oh, sorry, second serve return +1. Second serve return.
Yes. Okay, so on a second serve return +1, I'm going to put a target out at the serve location number 3. So out wide is 1, body forehands 2, body backhands 3, and tees 4. So I'm going to put a target there for them to serve out. I'm also going to measure 2 racket lengths in from the service line and put my yellow lines down there. So I want a second serve that's deep, and I want the second serve to the backhand jam location. Yep. So they're gonna serve there. And so what I do is we have a scoreboard to 20. So anytime that second serve lands in that area or hits that cone, the serve they get, if it lands in that area, they get it deep, they get a point. So I'm going to let that serve go right by me. I'm down the receiving end. Yep. And as it goes right by me, I'm going to feed something weak. Hang on a second. I'm getting mixed up here. You're
thinking of the second serve.
Exactly.
But keep going with that, because I think people want to.
My fault. Yeah, I'm on the. I just
that's right.
The other side.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, that's valuable. We want to hear that as well.
So we want the second serve return +1.
Yeah, so I would be serving to you. You're working on
Okay,
the second
great.
serve return.
So we just switched. So I'm serving the second serve to position 3. I put a little target down there so they know. I want some of their returns to be back. Let's say they're a righty. I want some of their returns to be back in, but I absolutely want some of their returns to be run around forehands.
Yep.
So I'll also put the lines out on my side, the line between A and B and B and C. Excuse me, A and B and C and D.
Yep.
So we've got a target down the middle of the court. So they're going to be aggressive right down the middle of the court. Big targets, right, big shots go to big targets. So we're only going to work, the primary patterns are going to B and C on that second serve return. It's all about depth, and it's all about power, and it's all about taking time away. So you are absolutely aggressive. Then I'm going to hit that next ball, and generally I'm going to try and hit it in a weaker manner. But, you know, I'm going to try and copy the amount of pressure I will be under based on the quality of the return that they hit. So if they rocket a really good return at me, I'll give them a weaker ball back. I might give them a high ball. I might give them a short ball. You know, and one of the things that happens a lot is they'll hit a really good return. Let's say it's within a racket length or 2 racket lengths to the baseline. Extra good. Sometimes I'll just let that go and I'll look at them and go, are you moving back or are you moving in? Because you hit such a good shot that it's really likely that my next shot coming back is going to be in the service box.
Yep.
And quite often they've hit the second serve return and they're backed out behind the baseline. And so, you know, on a lot of courts, behind the baseline is blue and inside the baseline the color's green. I go, do you have 2 feet in blue or 2 feet in green? So what I tell them is you're going to rocket this return and you're going to keep 2 feet in green. And then I give them that ball. Then they hit that ball. They come in and hit it. It could be an approach. It could be a big shot. You know, maybe they're on defense once in a while. So, and if each shot is really good, we just count the quality shots until we get to 20 quality shots. So we'll do 20 in the juice and 20 in the ad. I'll do that. I may do that draw this afternoon.
Yep. Yeah, that's an awesome one. I do something like really similar to that, and off a live ball, try and get them to approach on their second ball if they get it. But I really love that. What I was going to ask you, with stats and approaching, do you count a transition winner as an approach, or a transition ball that doesn't come back as an approach when that goes on the data sheet?
Yeah, we'll start. So the problem is that the heading is called shots hit, or how many shots in a rally. Our discussion, our terminology, our language is shots in the rally. The way that it's logged is not shots in the rally at all. It's actually the ball hitting the court. It's the ball making contact with the court, not the ball making contact with the strings. Yep. So, for example, I serve to you, you return to me, I hit a winner, 3. I serve to you, you return to me, I make an error, 2. Even though the ball hit the racket 3 times, it's how many times does the ball land in the court. So to answer your question, I think you're talking a transition as in an approach.
Yeah, so like I serve to you, you return it short to me, and my mid-court forehand approach is a winner and doesn't come back. So is that a baseline point, or is that an approach point, even though I was going to go to the net? Great.
This is such a big problem in our sport, is that we can tell it what it is and it's objective. Now, in my book, if your intent is to go to the net and finish the point of the net, regardless, if we're just watching you and we don't even see the other side of the court, we're just watching goal.
It's an approach.
And we go, oh, you're going to the net. Great. Of course that's an approach point. Absolutely, that's an approach point. I just did 2 seminars. One was at the PTR World Conference, and one was at the Texas USPTA Conference. So I started the seminar with this: is that I went to a match. It was John Millman versus Rafael Nadal, US Open last year or 2 years ago. So what I did was, hey Rocky, here's my boy. He just wants to come and say hi.
Hello.
Rocky is Rock, yeah. Hey Rock, how you going? I saw you in the other one with Devore.
He wanders in, so we might as well say hi.
Hope you're enjoying the quarantine time. No school.
Yeah.
Okay, so so I looked at all the points with Nadal and with Millman, and I looked at the ones that were either logged as forced or unforced. So what happened is I had, you know, at the PTR, I had about, I don't know, 200 people in the room. So I said, everyone stand. So I say, watch this point, and then you've got to say whether the error was forced or unforced. And then if you get it wrong, you sit down, and if you get it right, you stand up. So I show the first point. I have, and they've got to turn around and have a 30-second discussion with the person next to them to commit their answer. And then I show it to them. So after the first one, half the room was sitting down. After the second one, there were 4 people left. 4. At the PTR symposium, everyone was gone after 2.
Yeah.
And I showed this 12 times, and we went through 4 rounds. So these are coaches like you and I that absolutely should know and need to know the difference between a forced and an unforced error. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know the criteria. I've never seen, and you've never seen, here's what it's based off. Here's the criteria. We just don't have it. So
yep.
as you probably know, I'm all for just saying winner. If it doesn't touch the racket, error. If it does, forced and unforced are all worth 1 point. And
yep.
It's too subjective, and it leads us down bad paths.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of when I work with players in the transition area, in that mid-court area, of just everything as an approach. If it doesn't come back, great, but your intent is to go in on it.
Of course.
So you're not sort of, you know, thinking about recovering to the baseline or trying to go bigger because you need to hit a winner.
Yeah, exactly. One of the questions, what is the average number of shots in a point? We talked about that. It's generally, the average is around 4. Craig, who are you working with now? I'm working with Matteo Berrettini and their coaching team, with young Leonard Struff, Alexei Poprin, and also with Tennis Canada and some of their players. So that's kind of what's been keeping me busy. You know, all of that is shut down now, and I'm just, you know, looking back at their games and doing lots of research, and, you know, things that I normally wouldn't have time for. Those are the things and where I'm spending my time right now, and also making a brand new course as well. So staying very busy.
Let's see. High point, high performance. So great stuff. Thanks for sharing. Years ago, I ran a program for Dennis Vandermeer. We charted all matches, CompuTennis. I had coaches keep track of rally length all summer. Mm-hmm. It was interesting. 2.5 was the rally length.
Yeah.
So there's another one.
Normal. 2.5 is normal. That was what Sterling had with his 14 to 16-year-old high school kids. Exactly 2.5. I see another one here. You're the second most important person on a tennis court. Absolutely, 100%.
What do you tell players that prefer to take their backhand at C, or to prefer, because you know, obviously it always comes down to girls tennis.
Yeah.
And it's typically backhands are more solid.
Yeah.
How do you know, after the stats, what do you tell these parents? Or a top player that has an amazing backhand, like an Albandian, even though you watch him run around it.
How good is he? Yeah, his backhand's a joke.
Yeah.
So again, we've got layers here. We've got layers. So the first layer is, I worked for 3 years with Novak. He has the world's best backhand, and every time that he could upgrade it and see and hit a forehand, that was the goal. The goal was to hit as few backhands in C as humanly possible. And it's simply because the forehand's a bigger weapon. The forehand's the swords, the backhand's the shield. So that's one layer. Then the next layer is, out of all the forehands and backhands that are hit at the back of the court, the most amount of forehand winners are hit out of C, because C gets the most amount of traffic. Most amount of balls in tennis go to C, so most amount of winners are struck from C. So if the ball comes to C and you have time to run around it and you don't, that whole barrel of forehand winners, that number one barrel of forehand winners, you're not even accessing it. You can't even get to it. So, you know, it's also out of C. It's easy to go cross court to C and cross court to D, but it's not so easy. It's certainly possible, but not so easy to go inside out C to A. So it just drops. The number one place to hit a backhand winner is from D. It's D to A is number one. So what you're doing is, you get a ball to C, you don't run around it, you're either lazy or you don't understand it, and all these negative things start happening. It's not a place most backhand winners are hit. It is a place that most forehand winners are hit. So you just keep dropping those percentages like crazy. Now, let's add another layer and say it's more solid. Well, okay, fair enough. But is the goal in that point, you know, if the ball is a quality ball coming to you and you just need to be more solid, hit a backhand. We're cool with that. But if the ball is weaker, if you can upgrade, if you can get around and upgrade, double, and freeze, and especially freeze the opponent with a forehand, do it. So essentially, if the ball's coming you like, you know, I may get jammed. I don't know if I can get around this. Hit a backhand. But if you can, you look at it and say, this is juicy. I can turn this backhand into a forehand and do something with it. Do it every single time.
So just so that somebody asked there, so just to clarify, that means hitting, I think that's reversed actually. It means hitting a forehand out of C instead of a backhand out of C when you want to be aggressive.
Yeah, it's reversed because we're in
Let's see.
the camera, right?
No, yeah, I should have thought that out.
Yeah.
Yes, it's reversed, but yeah, I get your point.
We have something to improve.
Yeah, next time. So I had a question with how open was Novak to hitting more forehands out of C when you let him know that?
He loved it. Like when I first told him, I'm like, Novak, you know, the baseline ABCD, and I showed him. First of all, you know, and the reason is I wasn't coming with opinion. I'm not like going, we're in a meeting in LA in December 2017, and getting ready for the 2018 season. And it's not like I'm sitting there going, okay, Novak, next year you need to hit more forehands. That's not the conversation. The conversation starts with, Novak, I'm going to show you some Hawkeye heat maps of you and show you where you stand the most. And, you know, all of a sudden he's like, wow, that's interesting. And then I'm like, okay, then I put the layer of ABCD on there. He's like, okay, now I get it. I go, Novak, you need to hit more forehands in C. Then I show him a comparison of all forehand winners, not all forehand winners. It was like 300 forehand winners from the Australian Open that shows most forehand winners were hit out of C. You know, well, that's interesting. There we go. That's it. That's nice. And now it's good. So again, C is like, so I show him all these things and I go, Novak, here's 5 years of you in the London Tour finals, 2010, 11, 12, 13, and 14, where you're hitting 72% of your baseline winners as a forehand. So you add all that together and I say, Novak, you got the world's best backhand. Who cares?
Yeah.
When the ball comes to C, you need to hit a forehand. So I've just given him 4 or 5 layers of irrefutable evidence.
Yeah.
I've given him Hawkeye data. I've given him Australian Open data. I've given him London Tour Finals data. I've given him his own. So that's how you have that conversation. You don't just go in there unprepared or having an opinion-driven conversation, because it's not going to work.
Yeah,
not going to work.
For sure. Okay, my next question: what's the biggest development jump in juniors? Is it 12s to 14s, 14s to 16s? Yeah,
I'd love to look back at game plan and refresh my memory on that, because that's a good one. There is, you know, the power level, you know, basically in 12s, the serve's basically irrelevant in 12s. You know, kids, it's tough. You know, the first serve does well. At every level of our sport, the first serve does well, but the second serve's atrocious. So I do a lot of second serve work with juniors, lots of second serve. But, you know, 12s to 14s, they figure it. The 14s, the power starts to appear, and the serve, that has an impact on winning points serving between 12s and 14s. You know, in 16s, it really starts to hammer that. But, you know, I'd say kind of a side note on the question is that as a coach of a junior player, we're coaching the 12-year-old to be successful and enjoy the game and love the game in 12s. But we're really coaching them so the day they turn 16, we've had 4 years of preparation for that day. We're really preparing them for tomorrow. So, you know, I think too often, as you know, if I have to balance this, you know, 3/4 of my coaching is getting you ready for tomorrow, you know, which sometimes is some tough drills. Sometimes a lot of approach and volley. Sometimes it's some serve and volley. Sometimes it's handling more power. Sometimes things you can't do today. But if I sprinkle that in over a period of years, you'll be ready for it when you get there. I mean, how bad is it for a 16-year-old player to say, I've never served and volleyed?
Yeah, that's terrible.
You've got
terrible.
4 years. You have 4 years of development there that you've just missed out on.
Yep, at least have a taste of it so you can throw it in there when you know. Something that was really shocking to me, and I think if you don't know this stat, it'll probably blow you away. 55% of points for the world number one, right? So you win 55% of the points, you are world number one.
Yeah.
And then also in that 55%, what I love is typically if you win 55% of the points in a match, you win around 6-3, 6-3.
Exactly.
Which is sort of a cruiser. You take that win all day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in relation to junior development, I think that's so important because a player makes an error and they go crazy or they get down on themselves. You can just put that lost point mentally in the 45% loss column and go back to focusing on what is important and the better patterns of play. Yeah. So I think that's like huge.
Yeah, it's exactly right. You know, if you go into the court with the mentality that you're going to lose 45% of all points and it's quite okay, it's actually a really good day at the office. You know, and when you lose a point, it's like, okay, that's just one of those 45. Move it over there, it's fine.
Yep.
It definitely is going to help you not get so angry and frustrated and you know, defeat yourself out there.
Yep. I got a question from Austin. Austin's one of my students. Hey, mate.
Hi, Austin. Hi from Austin. Austin.
Yeah. He said, what do you think players, other than the big 3 or 4, why do you think players often win practice matches against Novak, Fed, or Nadal, but lose in real matches in tournaments? Is it all mental, or is it a breakdown of their pattern?
No, because Novak, Fed, and Roger, they're all working on something in a practice set. A practice set's, you know, it's always good. You know, they're not living and dying on winning and losing practice sets. You know, they're working on things. They're trying things. They're trialing things in their game. Things that they may not do but want to do in a match that counts. They'll use that practice set to do it. So, you know, I think too many players that are kind of down that level is like, I'm going out to play this practice set and win it. You know, and that's 90% of my focus, where Novak's going to play, well, 10% of my focus is to win this, but, you know, the other, you know, I want to walk off this practice set and hit as many deep returns as I possibly can and maybe miss a couple deep because I'm going so deep, but, you know, not get any in the service box. So you're not, these guys are not playing practice sets to get W's. They're playing practice sets to be better for tomorrow when the real set starts.
I think in my experience here in the States, since I've been coaching, not enough time is spent playing matches. There's lesson time and there's occasional tournaments, but there's no in between to work on your skills so that you have the confidence to go into a tournament and use it. Yeah, I've found that that's something that I just don't see enough of. Playing matches and sets are huge.
It's all I did is in Albury. All I did as a kid. Yeah. So many practice sets. So that helped me understand how to play the sport, whereas kids today, they're just practicing. And what's the goal? I mean, it's practice to be good in practice. When you need, the practice court has a master, and that master is the match court. So I 100% agree. Way more practice sets.
Yeah.
Joel, let me scroll through and answer a couple of questions here, and then we'll come back. So, do you agree that this is from Enrique Bogo? I think I'm way back, but Craig, do you agree that the win percentage of approach points is better than baseline points because the players on average come to the net just when the point is almost done? There's an element to that. You're coming in when, you know, you feel good. You know, oh, I'm really in control. Yes, there's an element to that. But, you know, you look at the players that come in a lot, that really commit to the strategy. They do great. Again, they're in the 65% range versus the 47% range. So I just encourage you to get to the net for whatever reason. If you know it's a sit or easy winner, go. If you know that you can apply pressure, go. Next one is, it's harder to serve and volley because of how high and spin the ball is compared to 30 years ago. I don't understand that one, because how high the spin, if you're serving and volleying, I mean, Raft is the greatest example of, he didn't hardly ever hit a hard first serve.
Yeah, kick serve gave him time to get in.
kicking this thing in and putting it up above their head and serving and volleying behind that. So my goal is serve and volley, serve and volley, serve and volley, and serve and volley some more. It's a really, really good thing. How would you structure it for our high school team practice with 10 players? This is from Bruce. G'day, Bruce. Nice to see you. I'd work way more, Bruce, on, over 70%. Think of it like a pie. Over 70% of all points are in 0 through 4, and 70%, or actually it's up around 80% for your players, of those points in 0 through 4 are errors. It's a serve, it's a return error, it's a serve +1 error, it's a return +1 error, it's a double fault. So you're going to work on those areas. You're going to work more on returns, more on the combination of a serve +1, and have your players go and play. You only get 4 shots. Serve, return, serve +1, return +1, catch the ball, and then do the scoring system of perfect points where each player can take a point, but they have to like it. They have to like what actually happened out there. So I would structure way more of that than just rallying. One more, and I'll come back to you, Joel.
Yeah, no worries.
Is it the speed or the positioning that helps more with volleying? Again, Novak, I said, Novak, go to the net more. He's like, great. He goes, where do I hit my first volley? I go, hit it behind. So if you cannot hit an obvious, easy winner, if you're not playing poker and you got 2 aces, you take the first volley back behind where it just came from. So approach the backhand, first volley back behind the backhand, almost always you're going to have an overhead on the next shot.
That goes for serve volley as well, right?
Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah. On a second serve pressure point, match point for the opponent, what is the percentage of winning the point for the server?
It's the same, isn't it? Probably 40, 50%?
Yeah, not a lot changes. Things don't change. What is the percentage of winning points, winning volley points from opponent errors? It's a good question. So, it's a good question. I don't know that. I don't think I have that stat from just the opponent making an error. I need to come up with, let's just say, really high, really high. I don't know, but you're not going to the net going, oh my goodness, I have to hit a volley winner. No, you're going in and going, I need to make them miss. Last one, Joel. Novak's only weakness is his overhead. So, yeah, yes and no. So the answer is yes, because we've seen him miss a ton of easy ones from not moving his feet, from letting the ball drop, from being a bit passive. 2018 US Open, go back and look at that tournament, match points against Del Potro, he had an overhead winner. All throughout the tournament, the overhead winners. He went to the net 150 times in that tournament and won 74%, I believe. And his overhead was as good as I've ever seen it. And the reason, as I said to him, Novak, when you approach forehand and backhand, take your first volley behind, the next shot's coming as an overhead. So he had an end game of an overhead. He was looking for the overhead. He knew it was coming. He was anticipating it. He's wanting it. And therefore, the overhead was great. It's the other times when it's like, I don't know what the opponent's doing. Are they giving me an overhead or not? I don't know the pattern. So every time Novak was coming in, he just stuck to that pattern. And he's like, well, these are so easy. I know what's coming. So his overhead improved simply because of anticipation.
Yeah, that was a great answer. There's one from Tennis Recon. Could you share some interesting double statistics? Obviously, people probably play more doubles than singles. I think. Have you got anything for them?
Yeah. So it was 2015 Australian Open. Bolelli and Fognini win it in the men. So these are 2 guys, the Italians. They love to stand back and just rip, which we're seeing a lot more. Our game's kind of evolved to that in doubles a little bit. So what was interesting is that for the entire tournament, with a lot of players staying back more, there were, of all the errors that happened, 50% were at the net and 50% were at the baseline. So you're like, okay, we're even. Of the winners, 80% were at the net, 20% were at the baseline. So even though we're staying back more to rip more balls, the winners are still at the net. So the way to think of doubles is it's exactly like beach volleyball. When you're back, you're setting, and that's your number 1 role. Don't think you're a setter and a spiker. The front player is the spiker. So you're going to make a lot, the 50% errors and 20% winners from the back of the court's terrible. The 80% winners and the 50% errors from the front of the court's great. So if you're playing one up, one back, still think that you're setting so that the front player can spike.
And then there's obviously lots of different ways to set the net player up, right? Whatever makes the other baseliner uncomfortable. It could be a moon ball, slice, hard ball, mix it up, junk it, whatever gets the net player the ball. And that way you're playing teamwork and you're working as a team, getting the front player the ball, right? Not just obviously playing singles.
Yeah, completely agree. Quick question here. Tennis with Dennis. What a great name. Today, Dennis. Why do kids not learn serve and volley as a basic skill? So many kids do even know the 5 strategies of tennis. Again, it's layers. Those kids are watching TV. Those kids are listening to the commentators say serve and volley's dead. They're reading the LA Times in 2013 where the heading is what happened to serve and volley. And they interview Federer, who says serve and volley's dead. They interview Davenport, serve and volley's dead. They interview McEnroe, serve and volley's never coming back. They see at Wimbledon where in 2002 they were serving volley 30% of the time, but by 2010 it's 6%. So they look out there and it's like all these things just blare at them, say serve and volley's dead. But you look at the win percentage, that it's always around 67%. You serve and volley 30% of the time, you win 67. You serve and volley 6, you win 67. The win percentage is important, and we haven't known that. So now I champion serve and volley simply because, well, for 2 reasons. The main reason is the statistics and the analytics say it's a great thing to do. Yeah. You're winning. It's, we gave up on serve and volley. Serve and volley never, ever gave up on us. It always stays the same. It never goes up and down wildly. It's always the same. And secondly, I grew up on grass courts, and I love it, and I know how good it is. So, yes, if you're a coach, do it. If you're a player watching this, serve and volley the next time you get on the court.
I was watching Sampras and Agassi. It was a replay of the US Open in 2003, and I'm watching Agassi have to continually pick his spots on return, A and D, short or deep, because Sampras is serving and volleying a ton. And I was wondering how Novak would fare, considering how often he goes deep with the first serve return. So is that a strategy that players need to be doing more often, take his C and B away and come in behind a serve?
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. It's a really good idea. And again, a lot of times with strategy in tennis is, again, just look at what they like to do, look at where their strength is,
take that away,
and simply do the opposite. I remember I do a lot of work with the Italian Federation, and I remember there was, I forget who it was. There was a lower ranked guy. His name will come to me. Who I think it was an Italian player. Anyway, this is like 5 or 6 years ago. So the Italian players got to play Rafa in Rome, and it's like, the Italian player loves clay. Obviously, Rafa loves it more. So what the Italian player did was served and volleyed a ton, and did really, 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 really well. Way better win percentage than he would have from the baseline. So just because you're on clay, just because you're playing Rafa, always go through the filters. Well, what does Rafa want? Rafa wants any opponent to stay back as far beyond the baseline, and he just works them high to the backhand. And so you're done. So even on clay against Rafa serving and volley, I'd throw that in. And against Novak, throwing in some serve and volley. I mean, remember when like Andy Murray lost to Zverev, Misha, the brother, at the Australian Open. I mean, he's serving volleying and everything.
Yep.
And Andy at the time was just like Novak, great returning down the middle of the court.
Yeah.
So yes, valid. I like it.
Let's see. I had a question up here before. So, Kay Johnson.
Oh, go ahead.
Are we trying to survive the 0 to 4 points, or being aggressive and try and win it? That's
great question. Question of the day.
Yeah.
Question of the day. So the answer is both. Yes, you are trying to survive in a real way. You're trying to survive the first 4 shots. So, there's 4 battlegrounds. When you're hitting a first serve, you're trying to end the rally right there. So the quality of your first serve, whether you're aiming at a spot, whether it's speed, whether it's jamming, direction, you're hitting the first serve and knowing quite a few will be unreturned, but also you're also looking to follow up with a serve +1 forehand and finish with a 3-shot rally. So your first serve points will be, if I make a video of all your first serve points, and that takes, we're not going to put in aces, and we're not going to put in return errors, of which there'll be a lot. your first serve highlight reel will be 3-shot rallies and approaching the net immediately. Done. Great highlight reel. And if you want to throw in a bunch of return errors, great. That's the first serve battle. The second serve battle is, the two things I want out of that is, I don't want you to double fault, and I don't want you to make a serve +1 error. So you're in survival mode in those first 2 shots on your second serve. Returning a first serve, you're in survival mode on the first 2 shots, and on the second serve, you're in attack mode. So remember, in tennis is 70% errors, but in 0-4, it's up 80 to 84. So in some ways, at least in half of it, if you can, and again, tennis is 70% errors. So, we're not going to change that. There's a lot of errors out there. As much as we're the world is just overdosed on consistency, and we think consistency is everything, and it's still 70% errors. So, we know that that's not going to change. But a great piece of advice for juniors and for coaches to pass on is, if you take away the errors, the first 2 times you touch the ball, you put those 2 balls in the court, you're going to win so many more matches just because of that. Those first 2 errors hurt you more than any other errors that follow.
Yep.
So, yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, good answer, good answer. Devor just jumped on. G'day, Devor.
Devor's there. G'day, mate. He started it all. He started it all.
He's doing awesome.
Yeah. How do you...
Go ahead.
Let me answer this one here. How do you motivate your players? Would you agree that most of the motivation needs to come from the player themselves? It's kind of I like the question, but it's kind of a question that I don't deal with anymore. Maybe 10 years ago as a younger coach, or without all the analytics, that was more of a question. Now, I kind of take that question off the table. I now come as like, well, here's the patterns of play, and here's the data that proves those patterns, and this is what our practice court is going to look like. And we're going to cut our practice court up into all of these patterns of play, whether it's serving, returning, rallying, and approaching, and let's get to work and be better at these patterns, because we know that they're going to be what you're doing. I think the motivation, so motivation is not even a question there. I think motivation comes in as like, okay, let's hit 30 minutes cross court. Kids are going to lose motivation for something like that without an end game, without a reason, without a strategic, why am I doing this, coach? So I think if you fill your coaching with data, you fill your coaching with strategy, you fill your coaching with numbers, you have email lists where you're sending out data. I put out, at the moment, I'm putting out something every day. I love it. Take that and then spread that to your academy, and then all of a sudden the motivation side doesn't become the question that it used to be before.
Yeah, good. That's great. Trites says, should you choose to serve first or receive? Is there data for that?
That's a great point. I need that. It's another question. Where's my pen?
This is what the people want, Craig.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to write this down, because I write down a weekly story on the ATP website. It's with emphasis. It's called emphasis between the points, and I put a lot of that out. And so I can write any story I want, and things that fascinate me I'll go and look at. So the player, I'm writing this down. The player what was the exact question?
Should you choose to serve first or receive?
Okay, choose first.
I wonder what the percentage of being broken on the first game is.
It's
probably higher, right?
So I don't know the answer to this, but I can find it out. Which game in a set do you get broken the most?
Yeah.
Don't know that.
I remember reading Brad Gilbert's book, Winning Ugly. I'm sure you read that as well. And he was advocating returning first. So I don't know what the...
I don't. I see people do it. I don't. I mean, if it's for the express purpose of breaking first game, and you see the player breaking a lot in the first game, maybe. But the problem is, I like to be ahead. Our sport's a game of getting ahead. Be the player that goes to 15 love. Be the player that goes to 1 love. Be the player that wins the first set. Yep. Be playing from ahead. Apply the scoreboard as pressure. So again, I have a little bias here in that I grew up on grass, and
you held more.
I'm going to hold serve more. I want to be the guy ahead. I want to be. My understanding is, I think I can break personally, and everybody may be a bit different, personally, I felt that the time I'm going to break you more is when you are serving for the set. If you'd broken me earlier and you're serving at 5-3 or you're serving at 5-4, I really like my chances to break them because the added pressure that you feel to close and you reaching for the finish line is to my benefit.
Yep.
But I don't know that data, and I'd love to know that data. So what was, Joel, about 30 minutes ago, I said, oh, I could write that as an Infosys story.
Nadal, and he's likely, how much better would he be if it was sudden death scoring at deuce?
Right. Is he better? Yeah.
Better in the deuce court, better in the ad court on serve.
Yeah. Serve, deuce, or ad, better. That's a great one. And anybody else has another story, throw it up there. I like both of those.
Yep.
Hi to everyone. We got a bunch of people on. It's really nice to see you. And Joel, amazing for putting this together.
Let's try and make the most out of this quarantine time. I'd be for sure on the court right now. So
yeah,
unfortunately, everything's been shut.
I'm busier than ever. I mean, there's a brand new course called Getting Tight is the name of it. And Jeff Greenwald. Do you know Jeff?
No, I don't know Jeff.
Jeff's I believe he's number one, or if he's not right now, he's number one in the adults in 50s. I think a lot of years he's 53. A lot of times he's in 45s. I think he's got a world championships maybe in 35s. He's one of the best adult players, wins so many gold balls in the country and indeed in the world. Yep. And he's also a sports psychologist. Okay. So we put together, he flew to Austin a few weeks ago, and we put together a course where, it's on the mental, it's on the emotional, but it's also on the strategic. So it's, the most common thing that, as we're looking for a name for this course is like, what do most players do? We're like, well, most players get tired.
They get tired.
There it is.
Yeah.
So when players get tired, how do we help them? So we've been, and it's all video, tons of video in this, and tons of discussion between the two of us out on a court. So I've been working around the clock to get that out. So busy times here in Austin. It's a bit.
Yeah, look, we've been going for a while, longer than I thought we'd last.
It feels like 3 minutes.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
So I had a question. Most missed shot in tennis?
Return to serve.
And which one specifically?
Forehand.
I think that's something that people probably didn't know. I was shocked when I saw that.
Yeah.
A while ago, but.
Yeah, I wrote a story recently on Novak in last year. Out of the top 10 players, had the number one amount of aces on second serves for the season, and it's to the forehand. And we did there's a lot of layers as to why I advised him to start serving way more to the forehand on second serves. But yeah, serving to the forehand on second serve has a lot of benefit. Right time, do it at the right time for the right reason. A lot of benefit.
You can see that at the Aussie Open. A lot more balls going wide. Yeah,
exactly. And it's a combination of what are they expecting, what are you hitting, and where is the ball going to come back, and what is, when we do serve to the back end of the forehand, what's your average rally length and win percentages, and serve +1 and return +1. And you put all this in and you calculate, it's like, we should be serving more to the forehand.
Yeah. More on the ad side. Someone asked this question. More on the ad side. Do you mean? I don't know if they mean second serve to the forehand more on the ad side.
Yeah. Yes, there was. There's a lot more on the ad side. The juice side's kind of a normal one, but in the ad side, people in general, our sport returns better out of the ad. The backhand return goes more in. The second serve goes more to the backhand. So yes, especially because of that dynamic of better returning in the ad, you want to go more to the forehand in the ad. Good question here. What are Novak's primary objectives in a match? Keeping every ball cross court, hitting specific targets, trying to force his opponent to make errors. What are his main goals in a match? Make the opponent play bad. Have a strategy, have an end game to that strategy, and take the opponent out of their game plan. So it's always when we're preparing, and I'll just go through this. Is it keeping every ball cross court? It's absolutely not keeping every ball cross court. It's about running patterns. There's no end game to just a ball cross court. The 2-1 pattern, I'm going to go C, D, and A, is a huge one. Hitting specific targets, yes. Hitting deep early in the point and going direction more late in the point. Trying to force his opponent to make errors, absolutely. And the number one place is forehand errors in A. forehand errors and A is everything. A lot of his match goals going in. Match goal is I'm gonna play my normal game as much as possible, but I'm gonna make you play bad.
Go
ahead, John. Go ahead.
Advice for someone starting out on tour. I have 2 ATP points at the moment, looking to get as many points as possible. That's HM Barrett.
Well, a combination of things. On the practice court, you're going to work way more serve, return, serve +1, return +1. 90% of match winners win that battlefield. So to flip your, if you're doing 90% of your practices on consistency, flip it and, make it 10 or 20% on consistency and up your practice on things that matter to winning. And then get a really good schedule where you're winning 7 matches out of 10. You go and get the experience, and the next thing is film the matches, look at the matches. Warren Pretorius and I at Warren's with Tennis Analytics, we're starting a global business for players at all levels of the game to be able to send matches in and have it tagged and have the video tagged online, given back to you for players at every level. So, you want to know what you're doing well and wrong, what you're doing right and wrong in that match. So that service will be good. Changing your practice will be good. And playing tons of practice matches as well. Those were good starts. Question, would you be interested in coaching a WTA Tour player? Absolutely. Yeah, I've coached on the women's tour before. I naturally gravitate more to the men, but for sure, WTA, no problems there. Are the men and women's game as different as commentators say? No, they're not. The analytics are very, very similar in men's and women's tennis. So it's just the speed of the ball is a little bit different, but the patterns of play are basically identical. And the same in juniors and pros. Just think of tennis as just having different speeds. That 12-year-old speed that things are going. Run the same patterns as Novak at a lower 12 and under speed. Same patterns, not different patterns.
Who has the strongest serve? I guess you'd look at a ton of the data, you'd be able to tell.
Well, again, there's different layers to that. I mean, Karlovic's got the best first serve of all time. Second serve, Sampras, phenomenal first serve, not a great second serve. Goran, phenomenal first serve, not a great second serve. Nadal, not a great first serve, phenomenal second serve metrics because he's tapping into the serve +1. When you're thinking now is not just the serve, it's especially the serve +1 that comes back after it. So, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but second serve win percentage is like probably the biggest indicator of ranking success.
Yeah, it is.
Is that right?
Yeah. Second serve win. I mean, when you've got, if you go, I wrote another ATP story on it. When you look at the all-time, I think career highest, where you've got, anytime you see any metric, and Rafa, Novak, and Roger in the top 3,
it's important.
And they are on second serves. They are on second serve.
Yeah.
So if they're in the top 3, then you need some of that. Who has the better forehand, Rafa or Novak? If I was constructing a player and I had to take a forehand, Rafa or Novak, I'm taking Rafa's forehand. No doubt about it. Joel, I'll probably get about 10 more minutes. So any other questions
no
you
problem.
want to wrap up with here?
No, man, just thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Question here, how about game plans? One, very well, changes on different situations. A little bit. Things will change a little bit, but, you get a game plan. You play a guy, let's say Novak's playing Kohlschreiber, and he's played him last week, and he played him 4 months ago, and he played him a year ago, and he played him 3 times last year. Kohlschreiber's going to come out tomorrow. He's not going to be a different guy. He's going to be the same guy. And he needs to be a different guy. He needs to do things differently. When he's playing Novak, he needs to adapt. For a lot of players, they have to adapt to Novak and Roger and Rafa. So, that's you're going with the game with the main game plan, and yeah, you can change it. You can have game plan B and game plan C if things aren't going well. Whose serve did Novak have trouble reading the most? Nick Kyrgios. Nick Kyrgios gave him fits about that. What do you see about Sinner, his qualities, and what makes him so good? During the next gen in Milan, I watched him a lot, very close. I'm like, I want to figure this guy out. Took a lot of video of him. I need to put that up on the website. When he was 15, he was the hitting partner for Novak in Monte Carlo, and I took video of him then. It's just everything's easy. Everything's, the ball pops, the ball explodes off his racket. It's smooth, it's symmetrical, the energy's efficient. He doesn't really beat himself, doesn't get crazy in the head. The wolves don't howl. I think his serve motion can improve, but the forehand and the backhand is money. The forehand is really good. He's smart on the court. He doesn't beat himself. He's going to be very, very good. What's the difference between European-based players versus the world? Europe's dominates, and what are they doing different at a junior level? I could go for hours about that.
Yeah, the questions are rolling now. Everyone knows you're running out of time.
Yeah, I could go for hours on that. I mean, discipline. Let's just go discipline. Yeah. They're more disciplined over there. I think their practices are better. Their practices are more focused. What I do in Italy, I've been going to Italy now for 3 years. I do presentations for all the high performance coaches over the country. For 3 years, they've been inserting all this information into their coaching. The kids know it. The coaches know it. It's changed the way, Italian tennis, goes about their business, and they're killing it right now.
Yeah.
So, Joel, anything else you want to finish up with?
No, mate. Thank you very much. I'm going to, I'll link your website in there, and if people want to come and have a look at your strategy courses, I know that we don't have a lot to do at the moment, so maybe It's a good time to learn something, work on the brain a bit.
There's 9 courses on there. Some are singles, some are doubles, some are the mental side. They're all discounted 20% until the end of April. So feast. And there's a blog in there that's got tons of free information. And on my website, just when you go to, there'll be a little pop-up that says, do you want to subscribe to the newsletter, which is just letting you know the blog's out, the new information is out. So, you can get in touch with that. But Joel, thank you very, very much.
Thanks,
You've been an early advocate, an early adopter of all of what I've been doing, which really kind of got real serious in this area in 2015. So I'm glad that I've been able to help you.
For sure.
And I'm glad that you're passing this on to all the juniors around in San Diego and indeed around the world with the massive following you have. So,
thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, Craig.
Okay. Thanks to everybody for coming and
yes, thank you for joining
chatting with us. And we will definitely be doing it again.
Yep. See you, Craig.
Okay. See you, mate. Have a good day.